Hi guys, welcome back to the Nik Collection series. Now this week we've got a new release of Nik Collection, version 7, and this is a major release in every sense of the word. This feels like Nik Collection has finally come of age. And I say that as somebody who came to the Nik Collection through Color Efex, and doing black and white conversions I was aware there were a whole bunch of other filters, but it seemed like a disparate collection of filters with no real unifying purpose. That's all changed. Putting Color Efex in the center makes a huge difference. If you're a color photographer, you can now move into Color Efex from PhotoLab, from Lightroom, from Photoshop, from Affinity Photo, and start your processing. There are extra filters that have been supplied to Color Efex, and you can notably import functionality from Viveza directly in Color Efex. Now this means that you can actually base your entire workflow around Color Efex. The only reason to go outside of Color Efex in this kind of color workflow is to do finishing touches like noise reduction, like sharpening. And we'll come to the detail of that later. So within Color Efex, you can now more easily find the filters. There's a greatly increased range of filters, presets, and so on, and you can stack and rearrange them on the right-hand side of the screen. So whereas before this seemed like a bit of an onerous task, centering everything around Color Efex makes this effectively a lot more intuitive and a lot easier to actually do. And this will have a knock-on effect. It means we will actually work in Color Efex much more and experiment with multiple different filters because it's easy to manage, it's easy to find the filters. So this is a hugely positive update. Processing speed has improved as well, so not only do the pictures load quicker, but with the addition of things like the quick save and switch to capability, it's a lot quicker and easier and more intuitive to use multiple different plugins within the same workspace. So you can take a snapshot of your work at any time you like, and this is really useful simply for having a backup point if your edit goes horribly wrong. If you have a rush of blood to the head on the color spectrum, you can easily step back to your last saved version, or you can choose multiple versions to offer to a client to make a choice between. There's many ways that can work. There is now a switch to button, which means that instead of going back to Lightroom or back to PhotoLab, Affinity Photo, wherever you happen to be working, instead of going back there and then exporting again to the next plugin, you can simply move between the plugins in the Nik Color Efex workplace. Again, this makes it much quicker, much easier, and it's much more likely that this will be used and exploited by photographers. A win, whichever way you look at it. And speaking of getting to the results quicker, I've performed multiple complex edits with half a dozen different filters, moving out to different plugins and back. And this type of complexity in the past has often resulted in unwelcome artifacts in the picture, fringing and so on and so forth. None of that has happened this time. The picture is, as far as I can make out, absolutely perfect. That's not to say it's impossible to ruin a picture. Of course it is. These are very powerful editing applications, but the crux of it is that managed properly, this will have no impact, no negative impact on the quality of your image at all. So to the details. What's changed? Well, the big change that everyone's going to notice is that Nik Perspective is no longer there. It's been dropped. Now, this has been a long time coming, I think. Nik Perspective was an exact duplicate of DxO Viewpoint, and if you're editing in PhotoLab, chances are you're already going to have Viewpoint installed, so you have all of that functionality in PhotoLab. So you can do your your spatial adjustments before you go out to the Nik Collection. So I don't see this as a negative at all. I think it streamlines the suite of tools and it makes it much more likely that your workflow will be coherent and not bitty. There are 3 Viveza filters which are directly accessible from within Color Efex nowadays, so you don't have to go out to Viveza and back. So within Color Efex you can access global adjustments, selective adjustments and color temperature. The HSL filter in Color Efex comes as a filter and it features a vibrancy slider. Now this doesn't sound like much, but in fact it's huge, because as a filter you can apply this to one small area of the photograph. You don't have to apply it to the entire photograph. So I can look at my picture, I can see this bit needs more emphasis, more contrast, more vibrancy, and I can apply that effect simply to that area, excluding all of the other effects. How do we apply these effects? There are new or different controls on the control points. So whereas before control points relied entirely on the luminosity and tone of the area that you dropped the dropper in to isolate the pixels that would come under change, now you can change the outline of the control point. So it's no longer a resizable circle. It arrives on the screen as a circle, but you can change it into an ellipse of any shape. You also have the Polygonal tool. Now this is something that's familiar to people that have used Lightroom, and effectively this means you can draw an irregular shaped outline around the area that you want to change. Again, this gives you more precise targeting of pixels and less waste. A quick word about the Quick Save button and the Switch To button. Now, Quick Save we've already discussed. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Saves a snapshot of your work to the file system as a background task. It happens almost instantly and works perfectly. Now, where you might want to use this is when you use the Switch To button, because what happens is you're working in Color Efex, you've built up layers of different plugins, you've got a complicated edit going on, and you decide that you want to move out to, let's say, to sharpen the image or areas of the image, right? You can't do that from within Color Efex. You have to use the Switch To button to switch to that other plugin. Now, when that happens, and you'll see this in the demo, a little pop-up window appears that says, basically, when you save your new edits, you're going to hard bake the existing edits into the TIFF file, and what this means is that you can no longer revisit those edits with the intention of adjusting them in Color Efex. So you have to be very sure that those edits are what you want to stay with. Now, a way around this is to do a quick save, and then you can re-invoke. If it all goes horribly wrong, you can re-invoke that quick save and start the process again effectively. But it's just a little gotcha, and it's something that I hope that DxO will address in the next version, because as far as I can see, this is all that separates the Nik Collection from replacing Photoshop in my workflow. So the last thing about this upgrade, and this really is a substantial upgrade, is of course the pricing. And the pricing seems to me to be quite reasonable. The upgrade price, £79, €89 or $89. Full version, if you're not using Nik Collection at all, full version £145, €159 or $159. Okay? That being said, let's get into the demo. Okay, here we are on DxO PhotoLab 7 for a change. Previous videos I've focused on Lightroom and Photoshop as a means of getting to Nik Collection. In this video, as a reflection of the improvements in Nik Collection 7 and in the interest of balance, I'm going to come back to PhotoLab 7. Let's get going. Now, first thing to do in this photograph is to adjust the white point. We're shooting directly at the sun, and so this whole area is overblown. And if we just use the highlights control to look at that, you can see exactly where that's cutting in. So we'll just bring down the white point until that disappears, and that's there. And from here we'll go straight into Nik Collection 7. Highlight the picture, go to Nik Collection up here, and we choose Color Efex. Now, in the new version of Nik Collection, you'll see that Color Efex has really come center stage, and that's perfectly logical because these are color photographs. It's the right place to go. And whereas before we used to have to jiggle about to a certain extent in order to get different plugins applied, some of the new enhancements that have been made make it easy to apply filters and presets using Color Efex as the base. So if we look at the screen here, this is our imported picture. You can see no peaking going on there. Over this side we've got categories, and this is categories of presets, categories of filters. So if we go to basic adjustments, you see a much smaller filter list, and we look at the presets, we're on color. So all Nik presets. Now, I'm not going to use any presets with this picture because I think it actually has nice color and it's a beautiful location, so I don't see any reason to spoil the picture. One thing that I would do though, let's start the process by adding a bit of contrast. So we're in Color Efex. Let's look using the filters for the contrast filter. Here it is. And let's have a look and see what the effect of this filter would be. So apply neutral. Auto enhance. Now have a look at the star, the way the sun star appears over here. So that's better. And that might be much better. The only problem is that it's brightened up this area of rocks, which I don't particularly want. So I think of the two of them, that's the better one to choose. So I'd take this as a global setting, so there's no need to create any control points here. We can leave this as global. What I do want to do is to add a couple of control points in the rest of the picture and increase the contrast in certain areas. So I'm going to add another contrast filter. Okay, so what we're doing is we're building up a stack on this side, and I'm going to filter this particular one through a control point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Polygonal lasso just to pick out roughly the areas that this is going to be applied to. We can be quite rough in our selection because we can always diffuse that. Later. Now what we want to be careful of is introducing fringing into the horizon here. And we don't want much, we just want to get rid of this little heat haze that's going on. And just bring a little bit back. Okay, there's our selection. and this will respond to these controls. So let's have a look. So that's good. I think that's fine. We've got no color cast. I think that's enough. Okay, so that's just applied to this area here, and we're not seeing any fringing in there at all. But just to check this, what I'm going to do is have a look at the mask, and you can see that this mask, we can feather that a little bit. It's just to be sure that that's not going to create any untoward problems. Okay, so I think that's fine. Okay, that's sufficient there, and what I want to do is I want to warm this area up a little bit, and indeed almost all of it. So I think there we've got 2 layers of Pro Contrast. We'll use Viveza just to add a little bit of warmth to here. So, and note that we're doing this from within the application. So I'm going to use global adjustments, and again we use the plus here. Okay, and let's just add globally a little bit of warmth. Now what we don't want to do is to really get a big noticeable halo there, so we're going to make this very subtle. I'll back off to probably 10%. There, and that's quite good, and I'm going to add a control point down there, and that will necessitate having another global adjustment. So we'll add another set of global adjustments. We'll add a control point. And we're just going to demonstrate the elliptical nature of this new control point. So bring that in there. And just going to increase the warmth of those rocks a little bit. That's much nicer. Okay, and you can see that that's not affecting any other area of the picture, just those rocks. So just a little bit, nothing too extravagant here. Okay, so that's that one. I'd quite like to alter this as well, make this a little bit more orange in isolation. And I think the way to do that is probably a plus here, control point, bring that in, and let's just change that white balance. So we can make that more or less orange. It's probably too much. About right there. Okay, so this is good. So the last thing I want to do is to just show off the HSL tool a little bit. So this is perhaps a slightly gratuitous edit, but what I'm going to do is there is a new HSL filter. We can add that into the stack. And we can change here the hue, saturation and vibrancy either globally, which is this, so you can see the sun star getting much more orange, the sky getting much more blue. This is vibrance. Saturation really hits the saturated colours. So again, you're beginning to look much more late evening than early morning here. But we could do a little touch of that, tiny little tweak there. Okay, and the last job is to bring some sharpening in. So what I would do here is I'd do a quick export. This will give me the snapshot of what I've got so far. The reason I'm doing this is going to very quickly become apparent. I choose Switch to, and I choose Nik Sharpener output, and I get this warning. When you switch to another plugin, all changes made in the current will be saved as non-destructive. But after I save changes in the other plugin, I will not be able to return and modify current changes. Okay? It's important. Because once I do this, or I've set the settings in stone, selective sharpening. So I don't want to do global sharpening, so that's not going to happen. That will be turned off. Leave output sharpening at 100%. Now, just to show you the strength of this, as I increase it here, everything gets sharper. From the things at the front, back here, and I don't like this. I don't think it's realistic, and it's introducing a little bit of fringing around those edges. I would not use it to that degree, and I wouldn't use it globally, I don't think, but local contrast is slightly more subtle. However, and focus is even more subtle still. Now, what I'm going to do is create a control point. I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to make full use of the elliptical nature of the new. You have to be a little bit lateral thinking here. Now that I've got hold of that handle, I can drag it out there. Then I can drag this down, move this down. And really, I want it to be, around about there. Okay, let's have a look at that mask. All right, that's all over the place. So, playing with the luminance and the chrominance, we can bring this mask under much more control. The main point is it's mostly on the foreground and it falls off as we get over there. If I want to make that fall off more, then I need to bring this further across. So just reset this, we're going to bring that chrominance back and bring that back. Okay, we turn that off, and let's just add a bit of structure down here. Okay, and notice how this increases the perception of depth in the picture. This suddenly starts to pop. And a tiny bit of local contrast. Take that back down again a little bit, that's fine. And I think that's fine. We've done quick export. So quick export, really useful to take a snapshot of your work. We've done switch to demonstrate moving between applications, and so we've ended up in Nik Sharpener. Now, when I hit the apply here, this will apply it back to, or rather it will apply it to the copy, the TIFF version of the original file. So if I go apply, and here is my original file. And I think that's worked out pretty well for a quick edit. Okay, so that gives you a feeling of the new capabilities in Nik Collection 7. And just to summarize, what I would say is it's a big step forward for Nik Collection. Instead of just presenting as a collection of various plugins, we've now got a clear indication that we can use Color Efex Pro as a sort of central hub, and we can reach out, bring functionality in, bring other filters in, and build a stack of filters, which we could always do before, but it's more obviously useful now that we're able to bring more functionality into play. I think that the snapshot idea is a very, very powerful thing. It doesn't really replace the, if you do this via Photoshop, you can get each individual filter into a layer. It doesn't replace that, but it gives you, it basically gives you the ability not to mess your picture up by making a mistake further on down the line. So we've talked about this before. It's very easy to over-egg a plugin and not particularly notice at the time. You walk away from it, have a cup of tea, you come back and you think, oh my God, what have I done? When you're piling layers of plugins up like this, it's very easy to overdo it. But so that quick save is mitigates against that. You can always take a snapshot. You can always come back to that snapshot. I think it performs better. I'm not seeing any noticeable lag here, which used to be a bit of a feature, I have to say. And I think we've ended up with a nice clear picture. I'm very happy with this for a very quick edit. I think this is very good. And for me at least, crucially, this makes Nik Collection much more accessible from PhotoLab than I used to find it. Intuitively, it was a one-way trip. You go from PhotoLab to Nik Collection, you go to one plugin, create your filters, and then you would apply that, and you would go back, and then you would have to re-invoke the TIFF file and come back to apply a second row of filters. That's a second type of plugin. So that is now a whole lot more streamlined, a whole lot easier, and I think it's all the better for it. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope this has enabled you to see the benefits of the new release. I'm looking forward already to next year's release, but if DxO carry on at this rate, we're going to get a superlative application by the end of it. So let's keep going. So, if you're not a subscriber, I really would appreciate it if you'd subscribe or just took a like on the video, make a comment. It means a lot to me, and it really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. And we'll see you in the next video. Cheers, thanks a lot.